Greetings, Hoodoo family. Did you know that Hoodoo didn't always have altars? Especially in the beginning during its origins in pre-colonial and colonial America. So what did our ancestors do? Well, they had sacred grounds. So let's talk about it in this video. If you can't have an altar, maybe you should do as the ancestors did and establish a sacred ground. Before I had an altar, I had a sacred space because I had to work with what I had during those days, and I didn't have a lot. So this subject is near and dear to my heart. But let's go all the way back through our spiritual lineage and heritage where sacred grounds begin. Hoodoo was created by Africans in America. They came over through the Middle Passage from all over West and Central Africa. And they brought a different spiritual practices, traditions, and beliefs from various tribes and regions. So Hoodoo originated from the merging of these traditions by those who were once elders, spiritual men and women, medicine men and women back in their homelands. But now here they are in America. They have all this knowledge and spiritual experience, and they started putting it to use. This is where Hoodoo came from. Now, a majority of your plantation owners forbid our enslaved ancestors from practicing these old ways, their traditional African religions and rituals and practices, because it empowered our ancestors. And the plantation owners, they feared this would cause a revolt. And it did. Many of the slave revolts were led or aided by the help of spiritual leaders in the slave community. So they feared what they called slave religion. So they outlawed the old ways, and if they found you meeting or doing the old traditions, they would beat you unmercifully and sometimes kill you in front of others as an example to discourage others from doing these ways. But that didn't stop our ancestors. Early Hoodoo practitioners, they had no choice but to practice in secret. And that's why Hoodoo was created in secrecy. That's also why it is considered a closed system, because it was created for a specific group of people under specific circumstances. So they couldn't build altars to their ancestors out in the open. And that's why you never hear of our ancestors having them during and mostly after slavery. But altars and shrines go all the way back to Africa. They certainly knew of them, and I'm sure that they would have loved to have had them, but this is the environment in which they were thrown into, where they were discouraged from doing these things. But like I said, this didn't stop our ancestors from establishing sacred grounds. So they would go out into the woods and they would adopt a certain type tree or a certain bush, or maybe find a secret hidden spot in the thickets. And here they would dedicate the ground to honor their ancestors. And whenever they could, they would sneak away to this sacred ground at night to pray and to give thanks and to do their hoodoo work. Some of our ancestors were lucky enough to have some sort of a fireplace in their quarter. Now, this wasn't always the case. So they would often make the fireplace their sacred ground, hidden in plain sight. Some of our ancestors worked in the kitchens, especially the summer kitchen on the plantations, and some would secretly make that fireplace their sacred ground. There was no decorations, nothing like we have today. There was nothing to show that it was even a sacred ground. In fact, it's what they did there at that fireplace that made it a sacred ground. Late at night, they would pray there, they would give offerings and thanks, and even do their hoodoo work in secret there when no one was around. Now, even after slavery, people kept up this practice, going out into the forest to pray and to do their work by the light of the moon in a special secret place. A sacred space can be anything, anywhere you want it to be. And many of the older generation hoodoo practitioners, they didn't have altars, they had special dedicated spots in their home. It might have been a small little tiny shelf on the wall with something very unsuspecting but uniquely spiritual to them. Some used the top of their chest of drawers or their dresser in their bedroom. And once again, you would have never known. Some used a dresser drawer and hid special, spiritually meaningful things inside that drawer. That was their altar. That was their sacred space. I know of a few in my family who had trunks that housed all of their work, all of their materials, and it also served as their sacred ground because they were doing hoodoo in secrecy. We didn't even find out until after they died, and these trunks were open, and they kept these under lock and key. What I find fascinating is that some of the older women in our communities who practiced hoodoo in secrecy, they would establish sacred ground hidden in their flower beds. There was not only flowers there, but other unique, meaningful items to them. They would even plant their bottle spells there. They would have bundles hidden in there and other work buried in the soil right along with their flowers. So I say all of this to tell you, if it's not feasible for you to have an actual, physical ancestor altar, be creative like our ancestors and create a sacred space. Thank you, family, for visiting with me, and I hope that something in this video will be helpful to you. Don't forget, the 2026 Hoodoo Almanac is available. Get your copy today to help you navigate this year. There's lots of helpful resources in this book, along with predictions for Black people in America as a collective. The link to my website is in the description. Also, the Hoodoo Basic Training self-guided book is available. And more than that, I'm also teaching classes out of this book once a month. So you are more than welcome to join us. You can find out more on my website. Thank you for having an interest in traditional hoodoo of our ancestors. Let's work to keep it alive and keep its origins clear, and also ensure that they get the credit that they deserve for creating this amazing and beautiful system. So until the next video, be safe and be productive on your hoodoo journey.